Hi viewers, my name is Brian Isajachisto, a tutor of ICT in Uganda. Once again, I'm here to take you through what we call computer software. Computer software is basically a set of instructions which guide the computer to perform specific operations. You need both hardware and the software, the users, the communication for the computer system to properly function. First of all, we shall look at the characteristics of a good software. A good software must provide the required functionality. A good software must be usable by real. It should be simple for the user to understand. A good software must be predictable, reliable, and dependable. A good software must function efficiently. It should have a lifetime from the time it is manufactured, from the time it is produced, to the time it becomes obsolete. A good software must provide the appropriate functionality, among others. Factors that you should consider when buying a software. First of all, we shall look at correctness. Does the software perform the proper function, the required function? Robustness. Can the software refrain from error conditions? Can the software predict error conditions? User friendliness. Is the software easy for the user to interact with? Adaptability. Can the software easily intermingle with other softwares or with other operating systems? Reusability. Can the software be easily reused after building new systems? Can it be embedded into the new systems? Okay. Interoperability. Is the software compatible to other software applications, to other softwares, operating systems? Efficiency. Does the software make good use of its resources such as memory, disk space, and so on? We have portability. Is the software easy to carry from place to place? And lastly, we shall look at the security of the software. Is the software capable of keeping its data secure from users that are not allowed, unauthorized users? We shall look at factors to consider when buying. Me as a user, I'll look at those factors that we've talked about before as factors that you consider to choose between the good and bad softwares. But as a poor user, or as me, a user, Brian, how do I go to the shop and buy this software? Ladies and gentlemen, you look at the cost of the software. First and foremost, is the software in the reach of your pockets? The ease in learning how to use this software. Will your users, common users, be able to use the software properly? Does the software solve the problems of the user anyway? Is it reliable? Is it powerful? Is it fast, flexible, available, found easily on the market? Okay. Next we shall look at the classification of software. Ladies and gentlemen, software is basically grouped into two large groups, where we look at the system software and application software. System software degrouped or classified into operating systems, programming languages, and utility programs. Operating systems is grouped further into embedded operating system, network operating system, and standalone operating systems. Utility programs will list a number of about 30 the utility programs, and the programming languages are divided further into basically three categories, where we have the low-level programming languages, the middle-level programming languages, and the high-level programming languages. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll introduce you to what we call application softwares. Application softwares are grouped further into custom applications or bespoke application softwares, and the off-the-shelf or standard application softwares. Standard application softwares are further grouped into special purpose and the general purpose. We look at system software as a set of programs that control and maintain a computer in its proper functioning. It acts as an intermediary between the peripheral devices and the CPU. That is the main purpose of the system software. We said system software is grouped into operating systems, utility programs, and programming languages. The operating system is a generalized program that manages and coordinates all activities taking place in the computer system. The operating system has functions of starting or booting a computer, okay, providing a user interface, managing memory, managing programs, managing memory, establishing internet connections, coordinating tasks, maintaining, monitoring performance, administering security, and controlling the network. The booting of a computer, this is the process of starting a computer. Ladies and gentlemen, the operating system is responsible for loading programs that start the computer, providing a user interface. User interfaces, this is a part of software that shows a user how to interact with the software. The user interfaces are grouped basically into three. What we call the command line interface, the menu-driven interface, and the graphical user interface. A user interface is something like this. How do you interact with the computer? How do you interact with a certain software or a certain part of a computer? The command line interface. This is a user interface that basically uses keywords, typed words, and the basic input device in this kind of interface is what we call the keyboard. It is used to type commands, instruct the computer using typed commands. Here we look at keywords like delete, copy, rename, name, open. Those are the keywords that you'll find being used in the command line interface. The menu-driven interface. This is an interface that provides users with a list of items from which the user is supposed to choose what he or she wants. The graphical user interface. This is an interface that uses a variety of visual images such as icons, menus, buttons, and so on and so forth to issue commands to the computer. The graphical user interface is basically user-friendly. However, there are some differences that we shall find between the graphical user interface and the command line interface. The graphical user interface requires the computer to have more RAM because of the heavy graphics that require a lot of RAM to load the images, to load the programs into the computer's memory. Whereas the command line interface does not require so much RAM because the commands that are executed are actually light. Secondly, we shall look at the speed in execution being slow for graphical user interface because of the heavy graphics still. However, on the command line interface side, the speed of execution is actually very, very fast. We said the operating system is also responsible for managing of files and memory in the computer. Ladies and gentlemen, up here you look at a file structure. We look at a storage device, maybe local disk C, and on local disk C we have Windows, documents, program files, games, and so on and so forth. In the folder called documents, we have a subfolder called letters, and we have letter 1, letter 2, and letter 3. Okay, we also have another subfolder called the school papers, and school papers has history and English. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we call file management as a function of the operating system. There is what we call configuration of devices, establishing internet connection, and also monitoring the performance of a computer. That is done by the operating system. We looked at administering security. Here, in most cases when you are opening a computer, that window you interface with it always when you are opening a user account, where they ask you for a user ID. You identify yourself as a user of this specific machine or device, and they will ask you for your user ID and your user password for you to be granted authentication or permission to access this account or a certain account on a computer. Types of operating systems. We said we have basically standalone operating systems. These are operating systems that are installed or that work on a single computing device. Examples of the standalone operating systems include Unix, Linux, MS-DOS, Windows Visitor, and Windows has a list of versions of Windows that you can see here. We have Windows XP, Windows Visitor, Windows 2000D, Windows 2003, up to the latest version of Windows 2010. Next, we shall look at the network operating system. This is an operating system that supports a group of computers working together. Later on, we shall look at networking, and you discover that in networking, you have more than 2 computers that are linked together for resource sharing, to data sharing, and that is what we call the network operating system. The embedded operating system, this is an operating system that resides on ROM chips and typically used in handheld devices such as mobile phones. Examples, you look at the embedded CE, Windows Mobile, the Plasma, embedded Linux, and the Symbian operating systems. There are some factors that you should consider when choosing an operating system. Dear ladies and gentlemen, you look at the type of computer that you're going to use, the hardware devices that you interact with frequently, the user friendliness of the operating system, the adequate information that is provided by the developer of a certain operating system. That is, the operating system must be properly documented for you to choose that kind of operating system. On the other hand, on my side, I'll look at the cost effectiveness of this operating system, the reliability, security of the operating system, and number of users this operating system can support. We shall look at utility softwares. Utility softwares, these are a set of instructions that are designed to analyze, optimize, configure, and maintain a computer in its proper functioning state. We have a variety of utility programs that you'll come across, like file managers, disk compressors, antivirus utilities, screensavers, and so on and so forth. The antivirus utility, basically, ladies and gentlemen, as we are defining these utility programs, we shall define them basing on what they do. I mean, their functionality, their use, their purpose to the computer. For example, when you look at the antivirus utility, it is used to safeguard the computer from viruses, detecting and removing malware from the computer. The screensaver utility, that is used to prevent phosphor burn-in in cathode ray tube monitors. LCD monitors, it helps in keeping the screen active even when the computer is in its dormant stages. Ladies and gentlemen, you look at file compression utility, that is used to reduce, shrink the size of a file. And we look at the backup utility, that is used for creating an extra copy or a backup copy of your file. The data compression utility, that the disk checkers, the disk cleaners, the disk compression utilities, the disk defragmenters, the disk partitioners. We also look at the archive utility, the register utility, the file managers, memory testers, and spywares, among others. Team profilers, spooling utility, sorting utility, the merge utility, the search utility, the personal firewall utility, the uninstaller utility. This one is basically used for uninstalling, removing installed programs from the computer, and the system monitors. These ones are used to monitor the system performance. Programming languages. Ladies and gentlemen, we said a language is any mode of communication. Programming language, therefore, is a mode on how computers interact. On how users interact with the computer. So, programming languages are therefore used to create procedures and specifications for computation or algorithms. Computer programming languages may include popular programs such as formula translation, beginner's all-purpose symbolic interchange code, Visual Basic, COBOL, Common Business Oriented Language, C, C++, Java, Pascal, Perl, among others. There are some keywords that you need to look at when it comes to computer program languages. There is what we call a source code. This is a program in a high-level language before being translated into machine code. That is what you call a source code. Later on, we are going to look at the interpreters and assemblers and compilers. These ones help in translating between high level and low level. When you look at the low level languages, the low level programming languages, ladies and gentlemen, these are languages that are close to the processor but very far from the user. They are easily understood by the processor but very difficult to understand by the user. Those are low-level programming languages. We look at the middle-level programming languages as the intermediary. They are not so far from the processor, not so near to the processor, and not so far from the user, but also not so far from the user. The high-level programming languages as languages that are close to the user, very easy for the user to interpret and the user to understand. Ladies and gentlemen, we look at a compiler. It is a language processor that translates source code into machine code or binary code language, which is normally called object code. From source code to object code. Thereafter, we shall look at the interpreters. An interpreter interprets each source code statement at a time, one at a time, into machine code. They will always ask you, ladies and gentlemen, for the difference between the compiler and an interpreter. Both of them do the same thing, but they do it differently in this way. The compiler will read the whole program code and translate it into object code at once, whereas the interpreter will read a single program statement, translate it into object code, go back and read the second one, translate it into object code, like that, one at a time. Lastly, we shall look at what we call an assembler. An assembler is a language processor that is similar to a compiler. However, for it only translates from high level or middle level to assembly code language. The application software. Application software, these are softwares that are designed to meet specific end user requests. Ladies and gentlemen, application softwares are classified into two. What we call the off-shelf application softwares and the customized application softwares. Off-shelf application softwares refer to software programs that are designed to meet a wide range of user problems. You do not have any specification for development of these off-shelf application softwares. Take an example of Microsoft Office, the customized or bespoke application softwares. These are softwares that are designed to meet specific end user problems. Ladies and gentlemen, you look at the automated teller machines, the application they use, they can only give out money. You cannot come and say, I want to type my exam and use an ATM to type your exam. Because this ATM has a software that has been designed to perform only one task, working with the who are you, what do you want to deposit or withdraw, and that is all that the ATM will do for you. Copyrighted softwares are software programs with restrictions according to use, modification, and the redistribution. The developer here designs their program and puts restrictions on who is supposed to use it when and to do what. Shareware is copyrighted software that is distributed at no cost for a trial period of time. After this trial period of time, ladies and gentlemen, you are requested to pay, to subscribe for continued use of this software. There is what we call a freeware. Just like you hear the word free. It is a software that is copyrighted, provided at no cost for use to users. There is what we call open source software or public domain software. These are softwares that are provided for users to use, modify, and redistribute. This software has no restrictions from the copyright holder. The public domain softwares provided to users free for download. Ladies and gentlemen, we have what we call web-based application softwares. These are programs hosted by a website. Users can access and interact with these web-based application softwares from any computer at any time, using internet connection, of course, because they are web-based. There is what we call a software suite. A software suite is a collection of individual application softwares sold as a single unit. Take an example of Adobe Master Collection 2017, Microsoft Office 2010. Terms used with software, we have what we call a software wizard, a computer program that guides users. A software wizard is a computer program that guides users on through the procedure of usage from one step to another. Ask the user questions which the user can answer, and the questions lead the user to the next step. Wizards are basically used in the installation of application softwares or softwares. Ladies and gentlemen, lastly, I'll tell you about what we call a software template, an application template. This is a document that contains a layout and formattings that are necessary in specific document types. With this, I want to end there.